Travelers of Reddit, what cultural norm were you most shocked about when visiting another country, region? Croatia, it's a standard expectation that you clean the street outside your house as part of cleaning your house, at least in the small towns I was in, not sure about the cities. The cleanest streets I've ever seen and a real sense of communal civic pride. That happens in Spain too. I've never been anywhere else in Europe, but it might be common in the Mediterranean area. In Spain, no chit-chat from the Vatavone of that. I'll be serving you stuff that we rear in the US. Just tell me. My introvert self loved it. I tell you, food arrives, I eat. I've heard other first world areas have less of a kiss the customer's ass culture than the US. Because tips. Visiting China and seeing how aggressive, pushy people are. Makes sense, there are 1+ billion people. If you are polite and wait your turn, you'll be left behind. So everybody is pushy, cuts in line, shoving you out of the way, etc. Of course, I just had come from Japan, where it's the total opposite. Chinese tourists you encounter abroad are no better. I've encountered these in Paris and Rome. My solution, be a dick as well. I just passed cut in front of them again and shake my head no. Intolerance to public drunkenness in America. I am British, so you get used to public merriment and drunkenness, but I was surprised that it was not tolerated in the US. After a while, I thought it was a great idea. I once went to the LA Cracker Barrel, and during the order I asked what kind of beers they had. This, the waitress stated quite forcefully, is a family restaurant. Cracker Barrel is for old Sunday church people. Actually just white people in general, Puerto Rican here. There was a lawsuit against them at one point for segregating white dinner guests from all other creeds and colors. I am pretty sure they lost said lawsuit as well. In Armenia, cigarettes are communal because they are so cheap. If there's a pack on a table, anyone is welcome to take one. Except the Turks. Ha ha ha. Yep, fuck 'em. Philippines, dude with a shotgun holding the door open for me and calling me sir, at a convenience store in Quezon City. This is true in the Philippines. Every place that needs security guard will hire armed guards. Even security guards in elementary school here have shotgun. In America, the security guards are unarmed and look like bouncers. I was in India earlier this year, and their taxi drivers take you wherever they feel like before taking you to your requested destination. And would be deeply offended if you were like, WTF, where are we going? So, that's how I ended up on a boat in the middle of the Arabian Sea when all I wanted to do was exchange money, and at a random zoo when I just wanted to go shopping. I eventually exchanged money and went shopping, but had to go on field trips first to see the sights. Good times. Indian here, and this issue is pretty common among most taxi drivers in India. This is why in last 2 years taxi hailing apps like Uber and Ola have grown so much, as the attitude of the drivers were getting out of hand. Not sure it counts that much as cultural, but I was chatting with a girl from London recently, and when she asked if I visited the Grand Canyon before, I said I haven't, despite it being just a 6-hour drive. I believe her response was something along the lines of, only 6 hours? If I drive for 6 hours, I will be all the way in Spain. I lived in Scotland for 6 months and came to realize that it's a really American thing to list distances in terms of hours driving required. It blew all of our friends' minds when my fiancé and I would mention that back in the States we lived 12+ hours apart. Edinburgh to Dundee is the furthest I can drive before being bored. Don't know how you could do the 12+ hour thing. Nap time is everything in Spain. Visited Barcelona a few months ago, and it was my first time in Spain. Couldn't believe when my friend told me that all the shops and businesses are closed because it's siesta time. Love my naps and all, but that just drove me crazy. Edit, every siesta is a fiesta tbh. God, I wish I lived in Spain. An entire hour devoted to sleep. Sign me up. More like 2 to 3 hours. And it's really not that nice when you realize that you can't buy anything at the supermarket between 2 to 5 p.m. since it's closed and all the workers went home because, sorry bambina, we must take a nap. We had this awkward conversation with a family in Venezuela who we had invited over for dinner. They just wouldn't leave. My dad was doing the polite Canadian thing and mentioning that, we were tired, that usually we would be in bed by now, that it's been a long night and they probably want to get home, walking them toward the front door. And then we were stuck just standing there staring at each other. My dad finally just blurts out, "Why won't you leave? We're tired and want to go to bed." And in frustration they replied, "Why won't you just let us go?" Turns out that in Venezuelan culture it's rude to leave on your own as an invited guest. The polite thing to do is to wait for your host to open the door and guide you out, but in Canadian culture it's rude to ask your invited company to leave and you wait for them to open the door and go on their own. Born in Venezuela, we leave whenever we want. You just encountered some really weird people, ha 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 ha. As an American Southerner, trying to make friends traveling Europe alone was an interesting experiment. Germans and Belgians thought I was a whack job for speaking to strangers randomly, but I had some great conversations in France and the Netherlands. That said, in Germany at least, I found that once you infiltrate a friend group, they can be very inclusive and protective. Obviously anecdotal, but they agreed when I mentioned it. Most people I interacted with don't do small talk and would go straight to topics that Americans would consider rude when talking with a stranger. Seeing a whole family, mum and dad and 2 toddlers, on a motorbike. India? Greece? I've replied to some comments already about Japan, but I haven't seen any comments yet about American friendliness. I was shocked by how friendly most people in the US are. When we're buying groceries, the cashier would make small talk with us about what we're buying. I bought KFC and was having trouble with American coins, they are all the same color, okay, and the nice cashier helped me, there was no one else at the store so he had time. My uncle was raised in the US and knew all his neighbors, he loves riding bikes so he knows everyone around the neighborhood who also rides. I'd walk his dog while I was there and people would just randomly stop and talk to me about the dog. The friendliness makes my trips to the US very wholesome and nice. No free water or refills in Germany. Got a beer and a small water on a hot day in June in Germany. The beer was 16 ounces for €4 and the small water, which was probably 5 ounces, was about €7. Go figure. Edit, thanks for all the replies. Not sure if it is legal to charge that much for water. I guess, as many of you have suggested, I got bamboozled. By law there must be a non-alcoholic drink which is cheaper than the cheapest alcoholic drink on the menu. Not being able to flush toilet paper in most of Latin America. Trash bins full of shitty toilet paper in plus 35 weather. This is because of the sewage system, pipes are just smaller, or so I was told as a kid. Went to uni in Australia, first thing I did was to buy a small trash can for the bathroom. The Japanese guy was like, WTF? Why are we keeping the poop papers? And that moment I learned flushing the toilet paper was a thing. Paying to use the bathroom, most of Europe. China. People have no idea how to queue. People just stand as close as possible to whatever it is and nobody goes anywhere. Edit also babies wearing pants with holes for shitting through. I saw way too many Chinese baby dicks when I first came to the country and found out. Grounding is a form of punishment when kids get in trouble or acts up here in America. Back in China I used to get beat with a stick. That's called child abuse. You were abused as a child. The definition of child or abuse does not change per culture either. Some cultures just understand that hitting people is abusive and others remain ignorant of it. How well dressed Europeans are. I went to Europe looking ragged as fuck and saw perfect 10s constantly walking around, because their standard of dress is higher. No pajama pants, no sweats, just very polished and refined wardrobe. Needless to say I cleaned up my act very soon after LOL. And in Mexico, the crazy driving. And all the trash that litters the streets, MHHMMM. Japan. They are like all super respectful and there's hardly is any crime. The respect is very much a facade, xenophobia is ripe in Japan. Damn near impossible to get a job there if you're a foreigner, short of being an English teacher. Working hours are atrocious and work for women is minimal. Once a woman's pregnant she's pretty much expected to be a housewife for the rest of her life. This also makes it difficult for her to get a job in the first place. I was once on a train in Kanagawa and it came to halt due to someone committing suicide on the track a short time before. The nonchalant way it was announced and the unconcerned looks on the passengers' faces was shocking, to be honest. It happens so often it's normal. Of course, not many people hear of this side of Japan. It's all camouflaged with the shiny, fluffy cutesy bullshit we see in the media. Wow, that was a rant. I just become baffled with people's obsession with this country. Try living there. Seriously. It's no surprise to me that it has one of the highest suicide rates in the world and a diminishing population. Americans actually allow shoes into the house. Like, why would you want all those germs and shit in a place where you live? It has more to do with an atmosphere of formality than anything regarding cleanliness. If there's people over who don't live there, usually wear shoes unless it's super casual. If you're just chilling at home with your family or roommates, no shoes required. Also, it's worth mentioning that in hotter climates, i.e. the southern half of the US, shoeless feet, even with socks, often smell terrible even if you have good hygiene. So, I'm an American who started traveling in my 40s, mostly to Northern Europe, and I'm a saunal swimming fiend. My recent amused surprise was with regard to etiquette around nudity between cultures I hadn't thought were wildly different. The extremes LVE encountered. In Germany, especially the former East nature body freedom. Whole families swim and engage in recreation in the nude, as long as it's a park or other natural setting. Western Canada, people are never ever nude, not even in locker rooms or showers at hot springs. There are private changing booths inside the already sex-segregated locker rooms which everyone uses. I went into Miette Hot Springs in Alberta and, assuming Scandinavian norms, took off my suit to shower in the locker room after my soak and to rinse my suit out, and people looked clearly uncomfortable as they passed by and were forced to witness naked middle-aged person, smiley face. Everyone else showered in their suits, even if soaping was involved. Western Canadian here. That's crazy. LVE never experienced it as weird for people to be naked in changing rooms, though there are the individual rooms you mentioned for especially shy people. I certainly wouldn't say everybody uses them. The west coast of Canada has a few nudist beaches, as well. Not as openly as Germany. Foreigners from everywhere are confused by this. Many have asked me why, and I honestly don't know. That's just what we do. It's our way saying, "You alive? Yeah? Good." I showed concern, we talked, now I can leave. Though it does serve to open conversation up, if the person asking actually stays and talks. American born and bred, and I feel compelled to ask, though it doesn't make logical sense all the time. I have American friends who hate this custom and will respond with morose tales. Foreign people who respond with honest answers will find, in me, a person willing to listen and engage. In the Netherlands, sprinkles are used as a topping on buttered bread for breakfast and pancakes are eaten for dinner. Americans drive everywhere. We were cautioned about going for a 20-minute walk to a sightseeing spot because this was much too far. It was a lovely stroll. Some campers in the spot next to our bus in Yosemite took quad bikes to the Portaloos. If something was officially a 1H walk away, it could be done in 15 minutes, apart from in the national parks where the times were accurate. When I was in Kuwait, I approached some porta parties, and went to the one on the farthest side. A janitor or someone smiled at me, which I thought was strange, but when I walked in and there was just a hole in the ground to squat over, I could understand why, and when I came back out in a hurry, he was laughing, which got me giggling as well. When you sit down to a restaurant in Portugal, they bring you bread, olives, cheese, and sardine paste. If you eat it, you pay for it. If you don't touch it, they take it away and pretend it never existed. I had always heard that Japanese were super nice. I honestly never had one bad instance while in Japan for 2 separate weeks. Despite a large language barrier, they were willing to go above and beyond for me every time. I spent a night in an okonomiyaki restaurant. He didn't speak any English, I didn't speak any Japanese, we communicated using Google Translate the whole night. Never once did he give the impression that he disturbed by the situation. Also, Japan is insanely clean. I was hard to come by litter in bulk, people always sweeping in larger cities. It's also hard to come by public garbage cans. In Spain, the public transportation was cheap, clean and efficient. There were lovely pedestrian-friendly avenues to walk along with cute cafes and shops, beautiful historic architecture, the scenery was perfect, comfortable weather, etc. Some of the best food in the world. A traveler's paradise. Now imagine all of this punctuated by the strong odor of dog shit because people didn't pick up after their dogs. It was weird because where I'm from is so much dingier, yet it's very rare to see or smell dog shit on the sidewalk, let alone all on along the sidewalk for blocks and blocks. Not saying it's necessarily the norm for the average Spanish dog owner, but there has to be a large fraction of dog owners who just let their dogs shit wherever in public. I'm aware there is local outcry over this, so I hope the shit cleaner uppers prevail. When I pulled into Korea, I was surprised how many restaurants and other business establishments turned me and my other friends and co-workers away. Growing up in the US, most of the businesses wouldn't imagine not bending over backward to accommodate customers. I know it's because we were American military, but still was strange to experience for myself. Why'd they turn you away? I was military. And Southeast Asian countries such as Korea and Japan have a large American presence asked in the country. They cause a lot of problems, from simple drunk and disorderly to vandalism to rape and murder of local civilians. It has gotten pretty bad a couple times. When we pulled into Korea this specific time I was there, the general in charge of Pacific Command wasn't letting any US forces drink, at all. Except our admiral convinced them to let us drink. Right after we left Korea, if I remember the time frame correctly, there was a Marine, I think Marine, that raped and murdered a Japanese civilian. My family is from Peru. My first time going there they served me a traditional dish. Long story short, late guinea pig. Super late but toplessness in Barcelona. Even the old people. Especially the old people. LOL. But in Spain men don't tend to ogle women. If they see a 10, yes, I mean women would do the same with a 10 guy. It's normal to wear transparent t-shirts that expose your bra in summer, being topless at the beach, not wearing a bra if you don't want to. Boobs are just boobs, nothing more. I'm really thankful for our mentality regarding this. As a 20-year-old American traveling Europe this summer, in many places it is perfectly normal to be drinking beer by noon on a weekday, or pretty much always. Highly considering staying. In Japan. I'm an American. I guess I'm still in awe of how clean, orderly, and honest the Japanese are in daily life. I mean, I'm not a business person, so it's not like I'm engaging a lot of business deals, so I wouldn't know about their business ethics. But it just seems to be the kind of place where you really can just drop your wallet on the street and later that afternoon somebody will return it to you. China takes the cake for me. Kids defecating in the street. Not China specific, but the toilet in the ground situation, especially ones where you have to scoop water from another bucket to flush it. Even stranger is Tibet with the high altitude. They use yak butter as suntan lotion, which you need because the altitude is so high. They drink butter tea. Most people in Tibet don't bathe, very strange. You should check out India. No hole, people literally shit on the streets. A dad holding his son over a trash can at the supermarket so the kid could shit in it. This was about 300 meters from the public toilets. People in China think that when a kid needs to go right now. I feel bad for the person changing the bins. It may be different today, but when I was in Kazakhstan in 90s you had to be physically touching the person in front of you in line or somebody would cut in. As a firm believer in personal space, this was very disturbing. I love that you can walk down the street drinking a beer in Berlin. They've even got a word for it. Wet beer. In Vietnam I saw quite a few men who left just 1 or 2 strands of stubble to grow, but were otherwise clean shaved. It always freaked me out a little. Weirdly, how over-the-top people from India can be about hosting you in their home. Any drink, snack, meal the family has, you must partake in. If you don't want the spicy pickled mango or slated fruit as a snack, the hosts will sad concern you into eating it. Guests have to eat lots, 3 times a day, otherwise you must cook something else. Actually made myself sick overeating. No, you may not even think about taking that to the kitchen for me. The guest must relax in the best chair in the house. I met a couple of people who attended a random wedding party and they were followed around with people carrying chairs at someone else's wedding. When we first moved to Australia, it used to blow my mind how people would just waste food in restaurants, on TV, etc. There used to be this Saturday morning show where the hosts would throw eggs at people. I'd sit there aghast thinking of all the people living on the street living in my old country who would murder to just have a few of those eggs. And here's this guy hurling eggs at a 12-year-old cause he didn't know elephants were pachyderms. Haven't really traveled, but I was born and lived in Russia until age 10. Came to the US. Everything was a culture shock. The three main culture practices I still struggle to understand after almost 20 years of being here are: 1. Being expected to smile at strangers and in pictures, like all the time. 2. Asking how someone is doing upon greeting but not caring about the reply or even waiting for one. Why bother? 3. Having ice in beverages by default. Greetings in USA. How are you is the question you are supposed to answer in Russia, at least with couple of words. Guy comes to me and asks, "How are you?" And he doesn't even stop to listen even to my basic, "Fine, thanks," goes on his merry way. And I feel like an asshole since I never got a chance even to ask him the same because I was actually coming up with a proper answer. Who knew that? Sup means the same as hi, and you actually don't give a shit about my business and well-being? Or do you? Go figure. Edit, LVE read a couple of responses and want to clarify my point of view a bit more. I didn't expect honest answer. Question, how are you, often means basic politeness even where I'm from. It's just confused me a lot how people in US in most cases are totally not expecting any kind of answer for their question. Unapologetic, overt racism by many of the older generation in certain East Asian countries. Also living in a conservative Muslim country during Ramadan. They erect barriers at cafes and we heathens have to eat our lunch in secret and out of sight. Some older Asians living the West still have that. Bosnia, that two groups of people living in the same country can have two extremely different histories, narratives about each other and a war. Also, denying a genocide ever took place when people are literally still finding mass graves and digging up bodies every day. A friend of mine had moved to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for work. She and some co-workers were going to Starbucks for their morning coffee. They were so busy talking among themselves they had forgotten there is a male and female side to the coffee shop. She walked in with her male counterparts, and the entire store stopped and looked at them. It was at that point they realized she needed to go to the other side of the store, with the other women. Welcome to the Middle East, India. Constant staring and being treated as rock superstar. I experienced this in India as well. People were even asking to take pictures with me all the time and trying to touch me. It made me realize how miserable I would be as a famous person. Going to concerts or stand-up shows in Switzerland. No clapping, no smiles. You just watch the comedian slow descent into madness and self-loathing as nothing he says gets any reaction. Also watching kids at bumping car rides is hilarious. They all just drive around one behind another in an orderly fashion. That on China. Watching a kid squat and pee in the crowded market street. And it's not to be disgusting, it's because there were no public toilets available. Police driving around on motorcycles with big guns. I no joke saw a cop with a grenade launcher on the back of a motorcycle in Panama. What could you possibly do with that? The sidewalk class system in Australia, 2000. Me, male American tourist, 30-something, alone, dressed in like t-shirt, jeans, sneakers, wandering around downtown Sydney during weekdays, and I noticed something weird. I kept almost bumping into people, though the sidewalks weren't super crowded. And then it hit me. I did a series of experiments, where I lined myself up with the cracks in the sidewalk, and just walked forward at the same speed in a straight line. I did not collide with young women. I did not bump into homeless people. They all got out of my way. I kept almost hitting into tall men in suits, and elegantly dressed older women. They just saw me coming, and assumed that, as an obviously lower class person, I would get out of their way. When I didn't, they gaped at me like I was insane. No one in Scandinavia gives a shit about you if they don't personally know you. How does one make friends then? You go to a bar and get drunk as shit, and hope both of you are just on the edge of blacking out so you'll remember each other. I wish I was joking. In Pakistan, marrying your cousin is normal. Seeing dogs being taken to the local meat market was quite the culture shock. This was northern Vietnam. Malta traffic. People don't stop their cars at intersections without traffic lights, they don't even slow down, they honk and pray a Hail Mary or something. I wouldn't call myself a traveler, but I'm currently on vacation in Europe, from the US, for the first time in my life. I know that the French have a reputation for smelling like BO for not wearing deodorant, but Jesus. I didn't know until I was packed onto a bus with people all around me. Same for Italy. It was unbelievably smelly and I was surprised nobody looked as sick as I felt from inhaling their odor. In France I also noticed that nose picking is a thing. I know most people pick their nose in their car or privately, but I saw several girls going to town. Like really getting up in there. Next is the driving in Italy. In the US we have highway patrol and cops are quick to stop you if you're speeding, going too slow, breaking driving rules. The taxi driver I was with hit over 150 on the freeway. The road wasn't too full, but there were other cars who he just swerved past. He wasn't the only driver like this either. People here smoke a lot more than in the US, too. It's so strange to me. Afterwards they just dump their cigarette butts on the floor, not even putting them out. It's infuriating, as someone who cares about the environment and hates when people litter. Even though it sounds like I'm complaining, I guess I am. The city, Rome is where I am staying, is absolutely beautiful. Edit, 150 kilometers per hour, not miles, smiley face. 150 on a freeway is not really special in Europe.